Hello, and welcome back to Kardec Radio. This is Spiritism, a closer look, our weekly program of studies in Spiritism. Right now, we are studying evolution. This is our second program, first program last week. By the way, if you missed it, you can always go back to Kardec Radio, and it's going to be there posted. We post the program every week. You can always find us in there. Anyway, welcome back. This is Luiz Lima. I'm here in Central Florida, and I'll be your host tonight for another round of studies on evolution. Since last week, we had some comments, some suggestions, some questions, so I think it's going to be, we're going to have some interesting pieces of information to show you today. Again, we, at the end of each program, we post a question. It's a multiple choice question to make it more fun for all of us. We're all learning. There's no sense in pointing rights and wrongs. That's not the point. It's just curiosity to make us, force us to study a little bit more. So we posted a question last week, and we're going to bring it up here with the results so we can discuss. So this was the question. What can we say in regards to Spiritism and the theories of evolution? We presented the main theories of evolution last week. So at the end of the meeting, we posted this question. The question is open for 1 week until the next meeting, next class. And then we replace the question with something else. So we closed this particular question. We shut it down about 30 minutes ago. And so we had some options in there. What can we say in regards to Spiritism and the theories of evolution? So let's just go through this a little bit and see where we get. First option, Spiritism follows creationism because it studies the life of Christ. So there's several mismatches here. But most important one is Spiritism does not follow creationism. So that you can remember what is creationism is the idea that everything was created the way it is. Animals were created the way they are. Plants created the way they are, and as we know it, humans created the way they are. And everything happens in a snap of fingers. Okay, everything is God thinks and says and makes it happen. It's all snap of fingers. So creationism is actually the idea of there is no evolution. Okay, so this is not us, this is not Spiritism. Option number 2, Spiritism is 100% compliant with Darwin's origin of the species. We explained that during last week, and it's not, because the comments we had during the week, we're going to touch a little bit more on this thing. So, but that's a no. That's a no. It's Spiritism not 100% compliant with Darwin's origin of the species or vice versa. Number 3, third option, Spiritism is equally creationist and evolutionist. Well, you can't really be both at a time. If you're a creationist, you don't believe in evolutionism. If you're evolutionist, you don't believe in creationism. So they are kind of, it's either or. So no, that wouldn't be the answer. Then we got number 4, none of the above, which is the right answer actually, by the way, because it's none of the other 3. And we gave you a number 5 here for fun. No, I'm not sure. Don't know enough about it. Well, that's what we're here for, to have you study a little bit more with us and engage a little bit more in studying the themes and topics that we present here for you. But anyway, none of the above, because these other 3 do not apply. So what is the answer? We're going to get to the answer today. At the end of the meeting today, we're going to have, by the way, Spiritism has a clear, straight answer on the subject. There is no, it could be this, it could be that. There's no gray area. It's very black and white. Okay, so we're going to get to this later today. We always, as always, we encourage you to make your comments, to post, participate with us actually on the questions. You're going to get the link at the end of today's presentation. But anyway, creationism and evolutionism, that's what is the important thing. We are evolutionists. Spiritism is evolutionist, no creationism. Nothing was created in a snap of fingers like this. Creationism interprets the Bible in the literal way. Adam and Eve were a man and a woman, and all the story that we know literally. That's not us, okay? Those stories for us, they are, they have a point, but they are metaphor, okay? Anyway, so last week we stopped when we were talking about the theories of evolution, and we came to this. If you take all the main theories together, they go into groups, either creationism or evolutionism. And then that's how we finished last time. I said, well, Spiritism. Which one do we go with? Which one do we follow? It might be a little tricky to get to an answer. We will get to a straight answer. So let's start by elimination, okay? Creationism is based on theology. What is theology? God does. God makes things happen. God snaps fingers and things take place. God tells, we need a thunder here and there, it will happen. That's very, creation is based on theology. Evolutionism is based on something else. Okay, so we saw this last week. Evolutionism, we had three main theories for evolutionism. One came from Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, the other from Darwin, very famous, very well-respected, I would say, within science and even outside science, and New Darwinism, which is a modified version of Darwin. Well, let's look at these three again and the main points so we can kind of decide if we are evolutionists, if we follow these guys or we don't. Okay, so let's make a distinction. Let's try to make it very, very clear. Lamarck and New Darwinism. Why are we not doing Darwin and New Darwinism? Because Darwin published his work after 20 years of research. So he started in the late 30s, 1830s, I would say. And after 20 years, he published his first book, The Origins of the Species, and that was published in 1859. That's just 2 years after the Spirit's book, by the way, just as a reference for you in time, if you want to think of a timeline. So Darwin presents a theory that is very impressive compared to what we had before. What did we have before? Not much. We had Lamarck, that I'm going to talk about a little bit. Again, we spoke last week. We're going to highlight a few things. And creationism. So answers that we didn't have before started to show up with Darwin. But Darwin's work came before Mendel's work. Mendel is the father of genetics. He was the one working with genes and, trying to understand what today we know as genetic. It was a new science at the time. So when Mendel's work became public and, the scientists dig in and started to understand a little bit more what he was saying and trying to point out and show, certain things in Darwin's theory didn't make any sense. So we had to kind of blend both together. That blend is what Neo-Darwinism is. So it's a blend of both to make it more realistic, because Darwin alone wasn't answering the questions anymore. So that kind of makes the original Darwin's idea die in a way. By the way, within science, so as a reference to all of us, within science, Neo-Darwinism is still the most accepted theory of evolution today. Okay, so that you know. So we're going to compare Neo-Darwinism with Lamarckism. It comes from Jean-Baptiste Lamarck. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Lamarck himself, the person. He was born in 1744, as you see here on the screen. As a young kid, he went to school. He went to a seminary, a Jesuit seminary. So he had, in the early years, he had contact with Christianity at length, I would say, or deeply. So he went out, he went to serve the French army for 7 years, and then came back, went to Paris, and started working in a bank. As he was, working on this bank, in this bank, he he met somebody very special. That somebody's name, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. It's starting to get better, right? Okay, you will get much better, I promise you. Who is Jean-Jacques Rousseau? I'm making a fuss out of it, right? Who is Jean-Jacques Rousseau? Jean-Jacques Rousseau is a philosopher, and he's living in the when we get to 1750s, okay, 1750, 1755, he was a very well-known philosopher. Parenthesis, what is a philosopher? A philosopher essentially is a person who never stops asking. Okay, you ask something, they ask something, you answer. On top of your answer, they will ask something else, then you answer. On top of your second answer, they will ask something else, and it goes on a rolling ball, never ends, never stops. That's what a philosopher is. The best philosophers that we have today are called children. Okay, they ask everything. They want answers for everything. But that's what keeps us moving, right? So Jean-Jacques Rousseau shows up as a very prominent philosopher in the 1750s. What was happening in the 1750s? It matters. I'm sorry to do a little bit of history here, but it does matter, and a lot. In the 1750s, we were living 1700 years of Christianity as imposed by the church in the early days of Christianity. We had gone through the Middle Ages, we had gone through the Inquisition, actually was still part of it, Inquisition and all the atrocities and we know that from history, all of us. We heard the stories, we read books, we know it's common language for us to know what happened throughout history. So why all of that happened for such a long time? Because after Jesus discarnate, the church kind of the fathers of the church, who are these men who are gonna kind of take care of things and make it happen, make Christianity happen, they kind of imposed theology on us. Theology is, God says this, you cannot argue, you cannot ask, this is the way it is, shut up, basically, right? So that makes us not question anything. I can't question. That's the base for the early Christianity times, is this. You cannot question. That's the way it is. And this has been dragging for 1700 years. We want answers. We wanted answers. We couldn't even ask. How could we get answers if we couldn't even ask? We were going to, be sent to the fire. So it's very difficult. So then Jean-Jacques Rousseau shows up and says, no, we got a brain. The brain it's usable. It's something that I can use in my favor. What is the brain there for? For me to ask and question and go after and seek answers and all of that. So have a better life, better conditions, to know more, to have a more fulfilling life, instead of just being accommodated, oppressed by the current situation. So in the 1750s, along with other philosophers, they launched a movement that came later to be known as the Age of Enlightenment, where philosophy should be the dominant part, not religion. Okay, so it's an important fact in history. It changes things over. It changes from the church knows and everything, and it's the owner of the truth, to no, we gotta ask things. We need to ask. The influence of the Age of Enlightenment was tremendous, not only in France, but throughout Europe. From the Age of Enlightenment, Jean-Jacques Rousseau is the most, I would say, forward person. He had a disciple. His best disciple is called Johannes Pestalozzi, whose best disciple was Allan Kardec. It's becoming interesting, right? Things are, the gears are starting to approach each other. So yes, when Allan Kardec went to study in Pestalozzi's school, he carries all of that. He carries in his heart, because that was in Pestalozzi's heart, because it was in in Rousseau's heart. Let's just ask everything I need to know. I want to ask. I'm not going to stop asking. And that's why we have such a beautiful first book based on questions and answers. Have you ever thought of that? Allan Kardec could have just written, the Spirit's book as a plain textbook, just telling us things. First paragraph, first chapter, second chapter. No. He didn't do that. He came to fulfill the needs. The needs were, I've been asking questions for hundreds of years. I'm not getting answers. So I'm going to present you right here with the first 501 answers. First edition of the Spirit's book, upgraded later to second edition, 1,019 answers, questions and answers. So you see how important this is, all of this. This is all taking place in Europe. So Lamarck is one of the great disciples of Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He follows Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So in his mind, he is this, I need to ask, I need to ask, I need to ask. And he starts going after the answers himself in a small group of people. And he started finding things and bringing theories together. And then he wrote his book, his work on evolution. We saw last week, that he considers things as such as transmission of characters from one generation to the next, things or organs that we use in our bodies, us, not only us humans, but animals in general. Organs that are used, they develop more than those that are not used, that might get to a point of atrophying. So this is his theory. That's Lamarck. Lamarck had, if you can define the works of Lamarck as a big key of words or a couple of keywords, it would be evolutionary intention. There was an intention of each and every animal to evolve. For example, he's very, very famous. I think I mentioned this last time. He's very famous in regards to the long neck of the giraffes. He would say, why such a long neck? Because there was a need, there was intention on the animal to make it be longer so he could reach the food, right, up on the trees. So there is intention. That intention creates the need for evolution. That's Lamarck. Okay, let's go to the other side now. Darwin, which, as I explained, we call New Darwinism today. What is the key thing in the theory of Darwin, New Darwinism? It's not evolutionary intention, it's mutations, right? We explained about the natural selection last time. By the way, again, if you didn't see our first video, go seek in Kardec Radio, Evolution Program number 1. So Darwin is talking to us about mutations. That's fine. Okay, there are mutations. Let's see what they do. Let's analyze. Actually, that's his work. But the thing is, the reason for the mutation is where things go a little bit different than we Spiritists think. For him and all of those who support Neo-Darwinism, these mutations are random. It's just chance. It just happened, or it just happens for apparently no good reason. Well, that's interesting. It's an interesting theory. But when and in Spiritism do we hear these things happen without a cause? Things happen out of nothing. Things happen by accident. I don't think we hear too much about this in Spiritism, and we don't. We don't. That's not what we think. So to make the case, on the left side of your screen, you see Lamarck, evolutionary intention. By the way, this is something that Lamarck said. that evolution is a result of organisms acquiring and passing on environment-induced adaptations, not random mutations, environment-induced adaptations needed to sustain their survival in an ever-changing world. This phrase is in this book here, very interesting book. It's not a Spiritist book, this is a science book. It's called Spontaneous Evolution by Bruce Lipton, one of the great names in spirituality here in this country, United States. And the book is co-authored by Steve Berman. So it's a great book, explains a lot of things, and all in line with everything that we are saying here. He explains in details. That's why I think it's a great book for us Spiritists. All of that I'm saying here, I'm saying in a few words in a short time, but he will go at length. The book is very thick and addresses all of that. Why we spiritualists, us being part of them, right, cannot accept things as random mutations, chance, nothing like this. Okay? It's a beautiful book. So, remember, we were looking at evolutionism here. Okay, so we brought back the ideas of Lamarck and Darwin, and we compared them. So one is there is evolution in the sense that things, there's adaptation to the environment. That's Lamarck. The other is there are mutations out of the blue. Well, let's go back to our question. Creationism or evolution, which aligns with Spiritism? We know that creationism is out, but evolutionism, which one of those three or two? Let's consider Darwin a little bit. Let's not consider, because it is part of New Darwinism. So between Lamarck and Darwin, where are we? You see, we need to make sure we understand this as Spiritism. We need to know where we stand with feet on the ground, that I can answer. Not me, I as a sort of speak. All of us, we can answer this with confidence, and I know why, and I can explain. Okay, which one? None of them. None of them. Not Lamarck, not Darwin, not Darwinism. They do not align with us because they are essentially materialism. They are looking at animals' bodies, at physical cells, at plants, at physical bodies. They are not looking at anything at all outside the material world, except that Lamarck would say we can have, evolution because the traits are propagated from one generation to the other, but he could not explain how. So he was the closest to Spiritism. He just couldn't explain how. Of course, we don't have the resources that we have today. And the difference is Spiritism is not about evolution of physical beings, plants, animals, and people. Spiritism is about evolution of spirits. That has to be clear, my friends. Spiritism is about evolution of spirits. So any theory that presents itself as within the materialistic paradigm is not going to align with us, because there will be times where things are not well explained. We just mentioned Lamarck. He had the right idea. His idea is right. Yes, that's exactly what it was. But there are missing pieces in there. He could not explain how species would evolve, because this does not happen in the physical plane. Evolution in two worlds. Familiar? Evolution in two worlds. Yeah, Andre Luiz, that's what the whole book is all about. How it happens, how the evolution in two worlds happen, to the point that there's a phrase on the book, that's the phrase I'm putting here for you, which it tells us exactly about this. I'm going to read it for you slowly. Through the birth and death of the form, What is the form? Physicality, physical, okay? Through the birth and death of the form, it undergoes continuous modifications on the two planes. Modifications on the two planes, spiritual and material, in which it manifests itself. It here, he's talking about the spirits. This is why many of the links of evolution have escaped the research of naturalists. We just saw a few minutes ago how it escaped, because Lamarck didn't see what he was investigating. Darwin, same thing, because they were naturalists that miss that, because they are looking for things in the material plane. They represent stages of fragmentary consciousness outside the corporeal field. That means some changes, some evolutionary leaps will not take place in the physical realm. It takes place in extra-physical regions, as you see here on the text, where this same incomplete consciousness continues to develop its subtle vehicle. Okay, what's that? The consciousness? Consciousness is out there, it's not material. Continues to develop its subtle vehicle. What is subtle vehicle? Perispirit, subtle bodies, mental body, spiritual body, perispirit. It continues to develop the perispirit outside the physical plane, classified at the point as human protoforms, corresponding to its degree of evolution. So each one of us, the consciousness keeps developing its subtle bodies, and more or less, depending on the needs of each one of us, we are all different in terms of evolution. We all need different things. But this is exactly this is the black and white explanation why there are holes in all materialistic theories, anything based on materialism or its paradigms. Some of these things, some of these leaps cannot be traced back in time through physicality alone. It will not explain. So that's interesting, right? A lot of interesting things. We brought this in more details about Lamarck and Darwin because it's something we hear a lot of questions, a lot of doubts, a lot of concerns about it. And we wanted to present this to you. Okay, so we have one comment here from Matthew. It says, though the mutations are random, the sort meant and how these mutations are passed for evolution to occur is not. The mutations are not random. That's the thing. There's intention. Everything is intention. The changes, that's what André Luiz explains in the book, Evolution in Two Worlds. There is need for change, and those are triggered at the spiritual level, in the spiritual realm. There is intention. So we see things happening here. It's like, for example, you are at this point, suddenly you show up on this point, but you don't see the finger going from one point to another. So there's a missing link for all purposes. That's what we call the missing link. Those explanations that we can provide, looking at the material plane only. So the reason why Darwin's explanation doesn't really align with Spiritism or Neo-Darwinism is because they consider these mutations to be random. They just happen, it's chance. It's not. It's all planned. Nothing happens without God willing. Nothing happens, as we know. Okay? So I wanted to bring this to you today because I think it's important. I think it's important for us to know how Spiritism fits in this topic, evolution. And it doesn't have anything to do with science is wrong, please. It's not that. We needed them to explain certain things as well. So we go hand in hand. we go hand in hand. It happens that we just have an extra layer of information that science does not have yet, or they won't believe, or they won't consider, whatever word you want to use. So that gives us a small advantage on filling in the gaps and answering to the questions that are out there. And again, we, before the 1750s or so, before the age of enlightenment, we couldn't even ask anything like this. We couldn't even talk about evolution and animals and different species coming one from the other. You would just go to the fire. They would just kill you. So you see, we had this 1700-year silence. And when we could finally get our heads out of the water and start asking questions, that came, right after that came the Industrial Revolution 50 years later. Because then we started, as Jean-Jacques Rousseau suggested, we started using your brain to do all of that. And that's part of evolution too. That part of evolution, the humanity and so in progress, we're going to speak about that way down the road, but it's part of our program as well. I think I mentioned in the beginning of the first class, evolution is anything evolution. Our cycles are progressive cycles, and you have actually one cycle inside the other, inside the other, inside the other. That's why talking about evolution can't be 5 minutes, can be a few hours. It has to be something long. And because we wanted to go deep into the knowledge of this and then bring in as much as I can and counting on you participating with us, because of all of this, then we had to do a very extensive program. Again, weekly based. Every Wednesday, we're going to be here with you. Okay, guys. So at the end of the program, don't forget, right? We have a question that is going to be posted to you. Actually, I just posted the question, so let me tell you how you get to the question, right? This is how you get to the question. You go to this website. You can cast your answer right there, or if you're on a computer, you can use the QR code on the top left of your screen. And next, the question, you can cast your answer until next week, Wednesday, about 6 p.m. Eastern time, and then we shut down so we can publish and make comments. We count on you. We count on you to participate with us. If you're not watching live, you can. That's why we leave the poll for the question open throughout the week, so everybody has the opportunity to participate with us. There's no intention to criticize or anything. We do not, on the poll, when you go to the site, we do not collect names. We do not collect email addresses. We do not collect IP addresses, nothing at all. It's completely 100% anonymous. Don't be afraid. You're not giving out your name, your email to anybody. You don't have to fill out anything. You just go to the site. You're going to see there the question on the top and your 4 or 5 answers, and you just cast your answer. Well, guys, next week, we're going to go deep in Spiritism. So now we're starting to feel the difference between, the studies of science considering evolution as purely and 100% something material. And on the other hand, we have a totally different view from Spiritism, in which not all of it is material. And then we have to start. By the way, before I finish, let me just tell you this. Last class, or last time, I mentioned that evolution is such a big and huge and large, conglomerate of information that it's hard to decide where to start. And then I think I told you, we're going to start with the most common thing out there, which is Darwin and evolution of human species and animals. And so that's how we started to make our case. What is the difference, and where does Spiritism, where do we come to this? How do we align with them? Now that we know, we're going to start next week going to the basic of everything. What is the first thing, if you're talking about evolution, if you go back, reverse engineer, right? If you're reverse engineering, what is the very first thing ever? The creator and that's how we're going to start. Next week, we're going to start with the creation. We're going to show you from the get-go, from God. We're going to talk about how spiritual principle is and what it means, and spiritual intelligent principle, all of it. It's going to take us about 2 meetings or 2 classes, if you will, to cover everything. But again, we're going to go in details, and we're not going to rush or try to do something, fast. It just doesn't work because it's a complex topic. It requires a lot of details. There's a lot of details. We don't want to pass over and just keep going. No, we want you, again, to participate with us, asking questions, and helping all of us, because you're not helping me and you're helping you only. We're all helping everybody if you participate. Okay, thank you very much for watching us today. Don't miss next week, program number 3. If you're watching us live, stick around. In about 20 minutes, we're going to have our dear Simone Neto with her new program, which also started last week. It's called Universal Truth. Don't miss it. So I'll see you next week, guys. Thank you very much.